Okay, good evening, everyone, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this evening seminars. This is the 8th edition of the ASFI Science Seminar Series 2022. Our theme for this year has been to spotlight research from different fields that are advancing Africa's development. And today we'll be looking at this important topic, what is in a PhD? Navigating the twists and the turns. Dr. Daniel Doe, joining us from Australia, will be dissecting this topic for us today. And with our able moderator, Dr. Edna Sima Majaliwa from Tanzania. So welcome, sit tight everyone, and as usual, let's contribute our quota to make this evening a pleasant, fruitful, and rewarding one. My name is Bright Waro. I am the convener of this platform and the founder of the African Science Frontiers Initiatives, a platform for capacity building in science and research amongst Africans. I have my co-convener, Dr. Eman Sob, who is here. Eman, are you able to say some words to the participants, please?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the edition 8 of African Science Frontiers Initiative Seminar Series 2022. I am Iman Sobh, Associate Professor of Chess Diseases at Al-Azhar University, Cairo, Egypt, and now working also at Taiba University, Saudi Arabia. I am the co-convener of this science seminar series. I hope you will enjoy this discussion. It will be fruitful discussion about PhD. You will elaborate opportunities, challenges, and solutions, and you know how to navigate your way through PhD with our eminent speaker, Daniel, and moderator, Edna. Welcome, Daniel and Edna. And welcome everyone. I hope you will enjoy. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Eman. Please, as you can see, usually we record these sessions, so that is why you are muted on entry, so that we can minimize background noise. So for the time being, as we go through this program this evening, please use the chat box to introduce yourself. I see that several of you are already doing that. So use the chat box, introduce yourself, and then we will kick it off from there. So before we get into the topic, let me, as usual, make a short presentation of the African Science Frontiers Initiative, which we call in short ASFI. Some of you call it ASFI, some call it ASFI. The vision of ASFI is to raise the next generation of African scientists with the right competencies to drive Africa's developmental and transformational agenda through innovative scientific research. That is our vision, which we are pursuing with as much passion as we can muster. And I know many of you have joined the train to support us in this. The fact is that science plays a cardinal role in every societal development. Science is the watchdog, is the watchman, and support the society to grow through evidence, solutions that have been shown to have evidence. So Africa needs to work on its scientific endeavors. And so scientists in Africa have a very important role to play. And ASFI is here to support the next generation of Africans to perform this task. Our mission is to instill excellence in African science through competence acquisition, capacity building, and career development. We want to contribute to African science that tackles Africa's developmental challenges, because we believe that only a competent science can change our current narratives. As we always say, for too long, as Africans, regardless of the country, area, we have left Africa's development so too much in the hands of politicians. All right. And you can see how hopeful or hopeless we are. The question is, being a scientist, doing what you're doing, how do you contribute? And we have known from our experiences that the problem is not that we do not have the passion to contribute. One of the key challenges and the elephant in the room, as we say, is that many do not have the requisite capacity, the technical know-how as scientists, how to use their skills to develop research questions that will solve societal problems. SFI is here to support this process in an excellent way. All right, to achieve our mission, to achieve our vision, we organize seminars as we have this evening, we organize workshops, and the goals of these seminars and workshops is to continuously bring to the fore these conversations about the role of the African science as a key tool in Africa's development, to motivate us as we journey on. So we have the science seminars monthly. We have this year, and then we also have another program monthly, Dr. Warren's research tips and tricks. We'll come back to that. We also have hands-on courses we organize in the area of scientific research methods, in capacity building and career development, science leadership, science communications, data analysis, and so on and so forth. And in fact, we have a course that application is now open until the 15th of November, the art of scientific writing and publishing. Several of you have been applying. If you have not applied, please endeavor to do that before the deadline. And the good news or the bad news, the good news for us, maybe the bad news for you, is that that course will be our last free course as an organization. Starting from next year, we have told you that, so don't be surprised. I see some of you expressing surprises on your faces. Don't be surprised, because we have been with this together. So starting from January, we'll take some fees, and the fees are not to really make you to pay, is to support what we are doing. In the last almost 3 years now, we have been working, training, offering our services free of charge, and many of you have enjoyed it. And I know that you will not relent to come to gain the skills even when you start charging. So why I'm saying this is that if you have not tested the ASFI menu, this is your last chance to do it free and enjoy it. Of course, I know that even when it is charged, you will show up. So please go on and apply to the next course we're organizing in December. We also have mentoring program. We mentor young Africans as well as senior ones in different aspects of our program, so that each course we have, at the end of each, we establish a mentoring program in which we can help participants to consolidate in the skills they have learned from the courses. We also have research activities, which we try to use to generate topics and understand issues that are bothering African scientists. What we have done, as I said, in the almost 3 years now we have been running this, we have organized 8 courses, each of them running for 5 days, about 7 to 8 hours each course each day. And this is really a meeting of minds that in the end, at the end of each course, people do not want to go. We bring people together and establish contact, they establish relationship, people who have not met themselves before, but coming together, formulating questions, working day and night for 1 week. And after that, relationship is established, research relationship. And that is what makes ASFI ASFI. We enjoy it, that people can leave each course and continue to build strongly in their capacity to unite as Africans to solve questions of common interest. We have had over 5,000 applicants applying to these 8 courses, and we have trained over 1,000 participants from over 40 countries in Africa. This is a milestone. Actually, when we started, we set a milestone of 500, training 500 Africans. But we have outsmarted that. We have gone so much over that. And by the end of the course we are having this December, we know that we will really surpass the milestones we have set for ourselves. Yeah, so this evening is about the science seminar series we are running. And I will briefly introduce the moderator for this evening, and that is Dr. Edna Sima Majaliwa. She's a medical doctor, and she works as a pediatric endocrinologist at the Muhimbili National Hospital in Tanzania. This is a very popular hospital in Tanzania. She's also an honorary lecturer at the Muhimbili University in Tanzania. Previously, she was the head of neonatal unit at the same hospital over a 10-year period, and she was also at the same hospital a medical officer. She's a PhD candidate at the Kilimanjaro Christian Medical University College in Tanzania. She holds a Master of Medicine from Muhimbili University College of Health Sciences, and of course the MD degree as a first degree from Makerere University in Uganda. She's involved in various research activities nationally, internationally, that are contributing to bringing solution to pediatric problems in Tanzania, Africa, and globally. She has published several papers, both as in academic journals and as books. She has attended several conferences to present her works. And so this evening, as a PhD candidate, she will be moderating this from that perspective, as we have this topic, what is in a PhD? She'll be laying her voice with the speaker to understand what are the ups and downs, what are the twists, what are the turns, and how do we navigate through them. So welcome everyone, and I welcome Dr. Majaliwa and the speaker. Please, as the speaker speaks on, we want you to write your questions as usual on the chat box. We'll be collecting them and we will present them to the speaker at the end of the presentation today. Sit tight and enjoy this evening. Okay, over to you, Dr. Edna Majaliwa.
Thank you very much, Professor Bright. And thank you for the opportunity, and thank you so much for that. It's ASFI degree that can be awarded, and it is researcher mentored 4 to 4 years to complete the work of a full-time work, and by the end of it, you get a qualifying exam, and if you complete your PhD. But through that PhD time, if you ask candidates who have completed the PhD, what would they have done, or what was in the PhD, they would have told you what they would have done different is they would have prepared early, they would have planned early for their PhD. That is in terms of it, what are the steps they'll take, the cost of it, if they get the scholarship, or they're going to pay for themselves. So the different things they needed to plan earlier before, and still now they want to plan earlier for their postdoc as well. But in that PhD, what helps in navigating through, I keep telling you, it's the planning. Planning comes number one, and you look at make sure you get the good your mentors. To get a good mentor, life becomes easy. So the mentors which can help, who will help you, but depends on your area. Cities that the many universities choose mentors for you, so it depends on which mentor you get. But then you have to know how to balance your work and life, and don't leave behind your mental health, because we know what the PhD can do in a mental health. So when you balance your mental health, is a way of finding the balance and how you're going to navigate. Those are among of the many things you're supposed to be doing in the PhD in order to navigate and complete that academic degree. But I won't talk much. Let us hear from our speaker today. Our speaker today is Dr. Daniel Doe, who is a PhD holder of social science and studied active aging. He's conversant with both qualitative and quantitative research methods. He has studied making policy and public speaking. He has worked in different countries, including Australia, Ghana, and Kenya, to mention but a few. He's a membership in different professional society, including Australia Association of Social Workers, African Studies Australian Pacific. He's currently a program at social sciences in what he has published many. Please welcome Dr. Daniel Doe. In the meantime, do not forget to put your question in the chat box. Please, Doctor, you're welcome. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Edna, for that introduction. And I would like to thank Bright and the entire ASFI team for the opportunity to come and share a few thoughts with our audience today. May I just quickly share my slide? All right, so it's morning right here in Sydney, and so I want to say good morning to everyone, and thank you for being part of the conversation today. I am speaking from the perspective of someone who has walked this path before, the PhD path before, and from someone who processes and works with PhD applicants, and someone who also supervises a PhD student. And so from these perspective, I would be building a conversation on what exactly is in this thing called PhD, how we can maneuver or navigate through the twists and turns of the entire process. I am making a number of assumptions here, even as we talk, and I hope that my sound is coming okay. Now, so a number of assumptions. One,
yeah, you will.
Thank you, Brian. That the category of people here today are likely to be one, those who are planning or thinking to start their PhD, and so we would have a story to tell you, or might be those who have already enrolled and are pursuing their PhD like Edna, and so clearly we'll have a bit of conversation around that as well. And perhaps you might be someone who is just about to complete, who have just completed your PhD, and what's next for you. So hopefully we will be able to speak to the needs of all these people within these categories. If indeed it is yes, then you can stay put with me as we journey through the story together. Now, my story today, or the conversation today, will be built around four core themes. One is a conversation on thinking whether PhD is even something you actually wanted to do in the first place. Is PhD for me? And then we would have a conversation on the problem of context and how different contexts shape the way the journey develops to the end. And then we would have conversation on some of the key issues within the whole process, which is where the issue of navigating the twists and turns comes in. And we would talk also about what next after a PhD. What next? Because it can get a bit overwhelming when you have your PhD certificate, everything intact, and now going out job hunting. What does it mean? What do you do? What happens there? Okay. All right. So the first question, that whether you are thinking of starting, or you have started, or you have been completed, it's still worth asking this question, whether PhD is for you. Is PhD the thing for me? And that comes down to the issue of motivation. And why that question is important is that your motivation for a PhD would sustain you through the journey and even beyond the journey, so that you don't complete your PhD and abandon it completely and doing something else. And so for those starting, I guess it's the right time to ask yourself the question, the honest question: what is it that is motivating you to pursue a PhD? Now, because there are several things that in my many years of experience, first as a PhD student and supervising PhD student and asking them this same question, I've realized there are at least four core things that shape people's motivation for PhD. One is peer pressure. Yeah, my colleagues are all pursuing PhD. We are all age mates, we are all classmates, and they are kind of doing great doing PhD. So I also want to pursue a PhD. and you jump into it. That's all right. Sometimes we get inspiration from our peers and our colleagues. But then it also has implication for how the journey turns out for you. For some others, it's about career requirement. Particularly for me, it's more about career requirement because I just found myself working in a university and doing research assistant job and doing a teaching assistant job, and then realized that, oh, come on, this is exactly what I want to do. And without a PhD, working in a university environment as a lecturer, it's not very exciting. So as a career requirement, you want to just go ahead and get it done. So for many people, it's the nature of their job that compels them to seek for a PhD opportunity. There are other people that PhD is a personal ambition right from childhood. Immediately they get into school, their dream, their life goal, everything has been PhD regardless. And so that person is also in there. And when these kind of people enter into PhD, it doesn't matter what is happening to them. It's their ambition, it's their goal. They will go through it. Then there are also another group of people who are motivated to step into a PhD program as a means of widowhood. I call it widowhood for future job. Yes, they want to study a PhD because at the moment they've completed their masters, there is no meaningful job. So instead of whiling away the time and doing nothing, why not just enroll in a PhD and use that as a means of widowhood? So they are just into the PhD so that at the end of it, they can be able to find some money. So regardless of what is motivating you into PhD, you should bear in mind that that original motivation has implications for how you enjoy or endure the PhD journey. Now, the second question on whether PhD is for me is to also look at your qualification and performance, especially for those who are thinking of starting. Now, PhD, it's an academic degree, and so there are some basic requirements that you must meet. To answer the question whether PhD is for you, when you have a diploma certificate, at that point, we all know that it is near impossible to use a diploma certificate to enroll into a PhD program because there are basic requirements that you need. But even beyond the qualification and performance, you also require character. You require some good attitude, right set of attitude and skill and experience to be able to pursue a PhD. So do you have those? If you do, and you have the basic entry requirements, then obviously nothing should stop you from pursuing your dream. But we must also acknowledge that to enter into a PhD, in most universities, if you are coming through the honors pathway, you need a very good first degree, usually a first class or second upper. Then you can enter into the honors program for a year, do the honors program, and that usually takes a number of people into a PhD straightforward without any challenge. Even though many universities are discontinuing the honors program, but it's still a viable option for some. Or you would also need a good first degree plus a master's degree, usually a research-focused degree. That might be an MPhil or a Master of Research, MRS, in many institutions. You could use that as an entry pathway into the PhD. Or, assuming that's also not there, you have a good first degree, you have any master's degree, plus a strong research experience, usually even within having additional publication in that field can also take you there. I mean, your experience, work experience in a research context can contribute to you gaining an entrance into the PhD program. But clearly the requirements differ across institutions and even across countries. So is it for me? It is yes, if you have the basic entry requirement, then PhD is obviously something you might love to do. All right, but then how does it all evolve? What happens? What does the context look like? What is it that shaped my journey, whether you are entering now, you are already in, or you are just about completing? The PhD process can be very murky and kind of complex, even though there are exciting moments as well. But whether it is murky or exciting depends on at least 5 core issues. There could be more, but from my experience and some of the things I have done in the past, I have found 5 core issues that you need to pay attention to, regardless of your stage in the PhD process. One is that your institution, where you study for your PhD, has implications. I mean, has a lot of influence on your experience. So there are some institutions, there are some universities that there's a lot of resources and opportunities to support your journey. There are others you have to work the hard way. It's very, very manual. And so that institutional environment, the support system within that institution has a lot to do to contribute to your journey and how you see PhD generally. That's why some people are very selective when it comes to where they want to pursue their PhD, because the institution matters a lot. Now, the other contextual issue, which is also important, is the supervision environment. Whoever supervises you also has implications for how you enjoy or endure the PhD process. I will be speaking a little bit more on the supervision environment, but clearly is one factor that you need to take into account when you are about to enroll, or even when you are undertaking your PhD, because it has implications for that. And we will talk more about that. Now, disciplinary context also shape the way we experience the PhD journey. There are some disciplines. I am from the social science background, and so in my specific field is social work, social policy. But so your disciplinary environment determine the kind of methodologies and processes that you could use and the opportunities that are available to you. If you are in the natural science environment, it's heavily lab-based, whereas the social sciences are heavily field kind of and human-based kind of study. So they all have implications for your journey and how you enjoy it. If you are someone who enjoys working in the lab, that's exciting. If you are someone who can't stand the stress of lab, then you should also think about field. So your discipline has implications for how you enjoy the process or not. And then, of course, the biggest factor in my view is funding. And I would also spend some time talking about funding in one of the slides, because a PhD, that funding can be very difficult, very challenging. And so how does that interface with your experience? How can you be studying for your PhD and be thinking about fees and be thinking about the next meal and be thinking about the next money? That can be challenging. And so we'll talk about that as part of the conversation today. And then another contextual factor which can also affect your PhD journey is the track, whether you are studying your PhD by thesis or by publication, because these options are there, where some people come in to study for their PhD by publication. You, per the institution, you have a number of publications, 3, 4, 5 publication, and that PhD can be awarded to you on the basis of your publication, or you are studying in the traditional way, which most of us did, by thesis. Whichever track you've chosen has implications for your journey as you move along. All right, so let's now pay attention to some of the twists and turns and some strategies that we can use to be able to maneuver our way through this twist and turn. The biggest one is the beginning of it all, which is the question of what should I study? For most of us, before we even enroll into a PhD, we have a good idea of what we want to study. And but when you come in, so you might have submitted a proposal which was assessed, and you come in. But when you come in, things change slightly. I mean, there are a lot of modifications, there are a lot of things. You even begin to question your own thinking and the first proposal that you came along with. So this, it's usually one of the trickiest moments for most PhD candidates. I refer to that experience as the bittersweet moment, which is usually the first 6 months of your journey in any PhD system. Which comes to the question of what should I study? It sounds a very simple question, but it can throw you off board for close to 6 months to figure out what exactly you want to do. Now, there are 3 ways by which people tend to learn, or even more, people tend to appreciate what they want to do. One is the one that comes from your own aspiration, your own passion, your own interest, your own dreams for your life as what do you want to be known for? I started off my journey because I wanted to be known for someone working in child protection. You know, I wanted to do something on child protection, and I did a couple of work on child labor and commercial sexual exploitation of children and all those kind of things from the beginning for my first MPhil. But then we got to a point, of course, that didn't turn out properly. So then as part of my research experience on the field, I came across, I was doing something for an organization on aging, and then I met an elderly man who really inspired me, spoke to me about issues of aging, and I got so interested. So that became a kind of passion. So I said, look, I told that man that, you know, I think I'm going to pay attention to this area of study. And so I want to take it to my next MPhil, my second MPhil track, so which I did, and I have since lived with that and never wanting to really move away from that original intention. So your own passion, your own dream is a starting point for you. Then, of course, many other people come to a PhD because they want to fit into a supervisor's project or supervisor's interest, sort of trying to live the life of someone else. It's not bad. It's okay to, when you are looking for the PhD opportunity, to look for people who are thinking the same way you are thinking, or thinking about the same thing you are thinking about, so they can supervise you. But when your intention is only to fit yourself into somebody else's project, that also has implication for how you enjoy the journey. And it works out for many. Other people get a bit frustrated along the line because it's fairly easy and possible that a supervisor can twist your way of thinking when it comes to what you want to study. Of course, that is the essence of supervision anyway. Then other people also get into a PhD position because they apply into a funded project. So there's a funded project, it's a specific project, and you want to find yourself in it. So people come in trying to live their life for a bigger and broader project. It's not exactly their dream or their passion, but it's by chance that they think that somehow this project aligns with the kind of thing they have been thinking about. It's not exactly and fully aligning, but it's close to aligning with it. And so people pursue that. Whatever you choose to study also has implications for the twists and turns of this journey. It comes down to the issue of struggling with conception, refining your issues, and then asking those important research questions that can lead you to the process. Now, it also comes down to the issue of the challenge of finding the right frameworks and methodology. And often in the first 6 months, you can really spend time struggling through this. But the good news is that even in these difficulties, in these challenges, in this bittersweet moment, the whole excitement of starting a PhD or enrolling into a PhD really keeps your momentum in the process. And it is at this point that you start working towards defending your proposal. And in many institutions, in my institution, for example, we call it confirmation of candidature. You are not a PhD candidate until this process is completed and you are confirmed, and then you start your PhD. It usually takes between 6 months to 9 months if it's extended, if you are undertaking a 3-year PhD system. The second twist and turn in the whole PhD process is the issue of managing the supervision relationship. You are a PhD student or candidate, and you have supervisors that are supporting you. Remember, it's an independent journey, but they are supporting you through the journey. And sometimes they can make the journey, these supervisors can make the journey extremely exciting for you or very, very challenging for you. It depends. Also bearing in mind that supervisors are also humans. Now, a good supervisor would always seek to nurture you, would want to mentor you and see you grow. A good supervisor will promote you, will create opportunities for you. Go and do this, go and attend this on my behalf, do this. So throughout your process, you are exposed to so many things, and the supervision relationship becomes extremely interesting and enjoyable. That is good. But where you find yourself in a supervision relationship where you are afraid of your supervisor, you can ask questions, it becomes very toxic, that can be challenging. And many people go through that as well. Just last week, a PhD student called me, was from another country, was talking to me about their her experience, and she was virtually crying because she and the supervisor can't see eye to eye on anything. Everything she does is not good. How does she survive through this process? We'll talk about that briefly. Now, there's also this issue of politics and power dynamics of supervision, where increasingly institutions are using more than one supervisor. So you have at least 2 supervisors to supervise your PhD, and you have a primary supervisor who has a 60%, and you have a secondary supervisor who has another percentage. Or sometimes you can have 3 people. Now, if you find yourself in the midst of 2 supervisors who contradict each other, who fight each other, and obviously you are in a very difficult position. I happen to find myself in my MPhil, find myself in a fight between 2 supervisors, my primary supervisor and my secondary supervisor. Look at things differently, and all these people are giving you advice on what to do. Whose decision do you go with, and how does that work? That can be quite challenging for many people to manage that kind of a relationship. So how do we manage that kind of difficult context? Now, here I say that institutions matter because some universities and some countries really give power to students, but in some countries and some institutions, students don't have a lot of power. But if the institution has processes, good power dynamics there, you can complain to your graduate school or complain to your school about your supervision process. Even at best, you can even change your supervisor. That is if your institutional environment favors that kind of thing. But you should know that as a PhD candidate, you always have your rights, and you always also have your choice. And so you have to make sure that your right is not entirely trampled upon. But in doing all that, in my experience, mutual respect is important. Yes, someone can do something against you. Your supervisor can say and do things that you do not agree with. There are ways that you can approach that without really having to create any kind of conflict. So mutual respect is important. And then as a PhD candidate, being patient, it's useful, sometimes, because supervisors are also humans, they create all kinds of storms, but knowing that this storm too can pass. But of course, you don't let yourself be abused unduly without speaking up when you think that You cannot take it any longer. Speak up about it. Keep your focus and do not lose hope in many of the ways. And as I said earlier on, understand that supervisors are human too. There are times that as a supervisor myself, I had my bad moments. There are days that you just overwhelmed with so many things and a lot of pressure, and you are giving an instruction to your PhD candidate and the person is doing something altogether. Sometimes you can get emotional. So supervisors are humans too. If we understand that we are humans too, then we can together find a common ground to meet each other halfway through the journey. Time management and time is of essence when it comes to PhD. And I think that time runs faster with a PhD. Before you realize your time is up and you haven't reached anywhere. In a typical taught PhD, you have a duration of about 4 to 6 years for a full time, especially in the US. In a country context like Australia, a typical PhD full time will run for 3 years. If you are going for part-time, that goes for about 6 years. Now, but you think that the 3 years is a lot, but as soon as you enroll, the time runs so fast. Now, being able to understand your timing and your various milestones helps you to stay focused within this time, and it can relieve a lot of stress. But if you think you have 3 years before you realize it's gone and you are still struggling with your field work or your data, of course, a lot of things can happen on the field, but when that should be a different conversation altogether. We want to talk about issues of field and experiences of that. But because time is so important, and we must make sure that we keep the time as we work in PhD, we should also know that working all the time without even play can increase your stress level. So I tend to, when I did my PhD, I tend to play a lot. Yeah, I tend to find some time to play, even though that's not very easy. In play, you keep your eye on the clock and make sure that you don't miss the boat. I want to talk about PhD work family life balance, because some people have delayed starting a PhD because it's about their family, it's about their work, or it's something else. And others are studying for PhD now, but they haven't struggled with family and work issues. Now, but my question is, which one should come first? Your PhD, your work, or your family? Especially if you are a candidate who have a caring responsibilities, you have young kids with you, that would also affect your journey in many ways. And it's not an easy answered question, which one should come first, your PhD or your work or your family. But if you are a PhD student, that is an important thing to think about. For me, it's a great experience working while you are doing your PhD. For most of our PhD candidates, we create opportunities for research assistant positions for them, sectional teaching or marking, and other relevant job, relevant job that can contribute to their PhD journey and experience. So, but other people find themselves doing other kinds of job. It's great because you can learn all the time, but there has to come a time, even though we have problem balancing, there have to come a time where you find balance with your PhD work. Now, you can comfortably balance your PhD with work and with family some of the times, but not all of the times. At a point, you have to prioritize your PhD if you intend to finish early. That does not mean that you neglect your family. No, when I say prioritize your PhD, that you can really do between PhD and work, because sometimes when you invest yourself and your time in work so much, it takes away the little time you can pay attention to PhD, because PhD is a full-time work. That's why it is usually a funded position, so that you don't have to think about paying your fees and doing certain things, but just a little bit of work experiences to keep your head above the waters. But if all your life is about full-time work and full-time PhD, I guess that's an overkill, and you should be mindful of that. In some countries, there are work limits as to how much hours you can work per week if you are a PhD candidate. because they want you to spend some time to do it. My advice here is finding the balance when it matters most. Finding the balance when it matters most. Now, another twist and turns and worry for most people is funding for a PhD or scholarship. Can I fund my PhD without a scholarship, or can I attend a PhD without a scholarship? My answer is a yes and no. Yes and no, because PhD is expensive across many countries. If you look at the cost sample in Australia, for example, annually, you are paying between $33,000 to $42,000 per year, depending on your discipline. And this is not without accommodation and living expenses. So it can be quite expensive. So if you don't have funding, at least to take care of some aspect of the cost, it's going to be difficult. Now, as an international student, I consider PhD without scholarship or funding as a suicide mission. Yeah, it's a suicide mission, because to work and pay $42,000 a year and pay your accommodation and living expenses is no means a joke. Even full-time workers within the system don't earn that sometimes. So how are you going to do that? You may get through, but definitely not without a scar. It's also, of course, if you are a domestic student, if you are living in your own country and doing your PhD in your own country, where you don't have to pay for tuition, then you can manage the process, because then you can be able to pay for certain fees easily. Now, obviously, funding and scholarship is critical for a PhD journey, but these are highly competitive. And some of the funding regimes for PhD, they are looking for your degree, your academic experience, they are looking for your research experience, especially publication. Like I have seen that over the years, publication tracks are giving people better leverage when it comes to funding for PhD work. Now, there are several options out there depending on your country and the institutional context. They can access some funding. But in any case, a PhD without money is a very risky business to do, but it is doable if you can, out of your family resources, fund that. But I would advise that always look for a funding for your, because it gives you some peace of mind. Now, it also comes down to being resourceful as a PhD candidate or a prospective PhD candidate. And knowing where to find support is very important. One, there are several institutional funding opportunities, and you have to keep searching, even if you are within the institution. Then, of course, apart from that, because PhD is by writing an academic piece, you need to build your skill. Sometimes your supervisors cannot really train you to build your writing skill, but there are several supports within the university system to learn to write, how to write academic things. And then, of course, attend some methods training, attend job expos and careers fairs. These are all part of being resourceful as a PhD person. Then, of course, building the right networks. Something like attending ASFI event and creating these kind of networks is very important. And then, of course, I love to ask questions. Ask questions when you can. Publish if you can. And I put that in red because sometimes supervisors will tell you that pay attention to your PhD. Don't worry about publication. You can take care of that when you finish. But hey, I think that in my view is that whilst you study for your PhD, if you have time, you have the opportunity, publish and attend conferences when you can. Now, maintaining the energy. Recently, a PhD student asked me, Daniel, I am tired of thinking. I'm tired, really tired. This is a second year PhD person. He says, I'm tired of thinking. What else can I do? And my answer was, don't think. Much as this may sound a bit sarcastic, I thought that it was the obvious response I could give. Don't think. But the truth is, sometimes PhD journey feels like walking down a lonely path sometimes, and it can be very challenging. And there are a number of things you can do to keep the energy and to keep your momentum running. One is that you keep your eye on the goal and why you are here to study for your PhD. That should always remind you, your initial motivation for this PhD can sustain you through the process. I have learned that I don't have to kill myself to get what I want. No, because if I kill myself to get what I want, and then who will live to enjoy? So you don't overkill, so avoid stress and take leave. In a PhD track, there are opportunities for leave, take leave and rest. I always try to find a purposeful distraction for me as part of my thing. When I am stressed, when in my downtime, my hobby is that I hit the road and drive a long drive. That's me. So what is it that can comfortably distract you from your usual track, your usual routine? So just create a distraction for yourself. It helps for you to come back, rejuvenate, and pick up where you left. Find your community and connect with others. If you are an international PhD person, or you are thinking of going abroad for your PhD, it's always great to look out for your community and connect with them and improve some social interaction, because that keeps your head above the water sometimes. If you have a family with you, spend some time with them, close the laptop and give them some moment. Forget about the PhD for a moment and do something more exciting with your family. Learn a new skill, something unrelated to your usual field. If you want to learn how to swim, go for that. Learn to play tennis, learn to play the keyboard, learn a new skill, and just create that moment to distract yourself from the usual routine. Don't compare your progress with others, because your journey is unique to you. Sometimes when you compare your progress, someone is doing so well, they are almost at the end of their thesis, you all started early. No, because the moment you start comparing, the more you build the stress and tension in you, and that can really scar you on the path. And so don't do it. At the end of it all, remember, after the fun, get back to action and work. You keep a healthy relationship between you and your supervisor. It pays to be in a good terms with your supervisor. It helps your journey. Relish the happy moments and the little milestone. When you achieve a little thing, when your paper is published, just get excited and enjoy the happy moment, the little progress that you have made. I'm coming to a close shortly. Now, for some people here today, you are almost at the end of the PhD track, or you have completed and you are still out there. Where to from here at the end of PhD? It's really difficult and challenging to complete a PhD and be running around looking for a job, competing with some of the people you have even taught at the undergraduate level over the same kind of job. And it can get a bit challenging and overwhelming. But in my line of experience, I have seen 4 possible tracks that you can pursue as a PhD. Traditionally, everyone thinks that once I have a PhD, I should be teaching in a university, I should be in the academia. I have a PhD, so I should be in the academia. Yes, of course, you need a PhD to be in academia and become a professor in a university. That's true, but it is not the only thing. So if you're only looking up to that and ignoring every other opportunity, that can be challenging. When I completed my PhD, my first work outside PhD was in the industry. So I was a senior research officer for an industry that works in my area. And increasingly, almost all industries and government organizations, policy think tanks, they have opportunities for research and policy in many of these organizations that are fitting for someone with a PhD. So I took that position up and worked with them for 2 years, of course. And then, of course, because it's always I was in academia and now back to industry, I thought that, no, let me go back into academia. I don't know what the next track will be, but again, you have the option to explore positions in industry as a research or policy person, or in the government. And then, of course, there are several international organizations and positions that are fitting for someone with a PhD background that you can explore, relevant to your discipline and to your field. But the least explored way is the fourth pathway, which is to create and develop and become self-employed. Obviously, the PhD trains you to be independent, trains you to create things for yourself and bring other people along that path. So if the job is not there and you're not getting it, then you have to create it. When we completed a PhD, myself and some of my colleagues thought that, oh, the first year we are struggling, we are not really putting our hands on things. So can we create something and build it up? So we created a consultancy. You can use that to start with and start building your skills for other opportunities. But again, it's all about networking and creating that space for yourself. Do not leave your job prospect to chance. No, you have to be intentional about it. Whilst you are pursuing your PhD, be intentional about what you want to do and start working towards it. If you want to be in the academia, then start taking up the casual teaching position, start taking up the opportunities that make you relevant for the academia post-PhD, start publishing, because those are some of the things that you will need to be able to enter as an entry-level academy. And then, of course, if you want to work in government, then start leveraging on the opportunities that would allow you to work within a government setting or an industry setting post-PhD. If you want to create your own project, your own business, then start thinking about it whilst you are pursuing your PhD. On that note, I just want to say thank you for staying with me for the last couple of minutes, and I can now hand over to my moderator, Edna, to take over for me. But as a bit of a disclosure, all images that I have used in this presentation have been sourced from free online platforms, and they are not the direct creations of myself. So thank you all. I think I can stop sharing now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel. Sorry for that. Oh my. Sorry for the interference. I hope you can hear me well because my net is not good.
We hear you.
We've all heard what is in a PhD and how to navigate through it, starting with the planning and knowing your motivation, and if it is peer pressure or if it's career, if it's an ambition, and so works for you is important. Your characters, the requirements of the institution, of different institutions. So, when you're doing it, you need to pay attention to the supervisors, the institution, the discipline you're going to be working on, and the funding. This should be the enabling environment, and you should enjoy your discipline when you're working on it. When it comes to the terms and the twists, for the first, you should study, is it your own passion? Are you studying your own passion? Is it your supervisor project? So you have to think through, and that is the time when you're doing the conception and you're refining your question and to know what you're going to be studying. But in the TAND as well, there's managing the supervision relationship, yours and your supervisors. If you have one, depends. If you have a good supervisor, you're lucky, and this is a supervisor who can nurture you, can mentor you, and promote your career. But then it becomes challenging when you get a different who is exactly the opposite of the other. Know about time management, because time runs fast, and know how to balance between your work, your family. Sometimes it's important to prioritize. And when you're doing a PhD, remember to find scholarship and funding. Doing it on your own from Dr. Daniel, it is ASFI. So we have to look for funding when you're doing your PhD. Then you need resources, knowing where to find support, the right network, ask questions, remember to publish when you're doing a PhD, and then maintain the energy. Keep your momentum, run to yourself. Don't compare your progress to others. Connect with others. Keep a healthy relationship with the supervisors. And remember where to go after your PhD. It is not only the academia. There are organizations, there are private sectors. You can develop your because the PhD trains you to be when you're doing a PhD. And with that note, I'll welcome the questions. And so I'll take some of the questions. So the first question to you, Daniel.
Okay.
Thank you very much. But theoretical contribution or methodological contribution can be ensured in doctoral study. Do you think without making any contribution, PhD degree may be awarded? If not, why?
All right. I guess if I got this question right, what do you mean by contribution? Whether if you make any contribution to theory or methodology before PhD can be awarded. Obviously, your thesis is expected to fill a gap in knowledge of things, or it's expected to extend the boundaries of knowledge in your field. That's the whole essence of your research or your thesis. And the thesis at the end of it will be sent out to external examiners to examine to see if it has made original contribution to knowledge. If indeed it has made original contribution to knowledge, the methodology is valid, everything is okay, the external examiners would assess that thesis as passed, and then you are awarded. If it is not fitting, they would either refer it, and you have to do other things and add other things for it to be able to get assessed. So that's why there is thesis examination to validate your contribution to knowledge in that field. And once examiners have said it is all right, well, why not? You are awarded your PhD because it's been assessed and passed that you've made some contribution to knowledge. Yeah, okay. How can a supervisor encourage a PhD student who do not have funding? Interesting question. Just this week, no, that's last week. So because we are starting Monday here. So I have a PhD applicant who also applied for scholarship, but she did not get a scholarship, and she has the option to accept admission without a scholarship. And so she sent me an email that, Daniel, I don't have the scholarship. I couldn't get through because it's very competitive. So there are no guarantees, but I have the option to take the admission. Can I survive? And my answer to her was, look, if I tell you that you can survive, I am lying to you, because if you don't have any money at all, if you don't have resources, either you could use your family resources or anything to pay for it, then you could accept an offer, but defer, and let's work on funding for you to be able to come in, because this is an international person. Yes, without a funding, if you are a domestic student within a country, for example, in Australia, where if you are pursuing your PhD, you don't pay tuition fees. I mean, you don't pay tuition fee. If you get a scholarship, then it's for your stipend and for other research support. So in that kind of environment, if you get an admission without scholarship, I would say you can still pursue it because the burden is not so much. But if you are an international student, I'll be a bit hesitant to encourage you to pursue a PhD without funding. If I have my personal funding, that's fine. If not, it's a bit tricky. I know that some people come in to try to work and pay. Yes, you can, but like I said, you can do that, but you would get out without you get out with a lot of scars. And I've seen someone's comment on the platform a moment ago that he's done the PhD without funding, and he spent 7 years sleepless night going through the process. So you can imagine, you know, so that kind of thing. So if you want to go that hard way, that's okay, you can, but I will be a little bit hesitant if you don't have funding for your PhD, because I want a student, and supervisors want a student that has a bit of a free mind to concentrate on the work. Yep. Okay, we always experience that PhD program is tough and hard work in writing dissertation and research. How can newly master's student encouraged to apply PhD program? How can PhD student pass and get through in peer review supervision? All right, if I got this question right, look, I don't want to create an impression that PhD is hard and it's tough and it's difficult. That's not the case, because every learning process doesn't come easy. Even first degree is never easy. It's hard. Of course, the unique thing about PhD is that it's an independent work. I mean, you're the master of your own, so you have to run the journey on your own. And so if you are studying something that you love, you are passionate about research, it shouldn't be that difficult. Honestly, you understand the rudiment of research. I don't really find PhD that extremely difficult. It's all the other factors, such as funding, such as supervisors, such as the institutional resources and opportunities, and your personal motivation that makes it difficult or less difficult for you. Now, how can we encourage someone with a master's degree to pursue a PhD? I guess that having a master's degree is just the beginning. In fact, that makes you a good candidate to enroll in a PhD program. Now, what I have been telling my friends back in Africa is that, I mean, one of the reasons why we are not getting a bit competitive when it comes to the scholarship for a PhD is about publication, at least trying your hands on something. So that your master's dissertation, that your master's thesis, can you convert it into something? You know, whilst you are preparing yourself to start a PhD, it helps a lot because it gives you a competitive advantage when you are coming into that space, especially when you are looking for funding. Try to publish something. I mean, at least something. So that's the way I encourage young people from master's level to start thinking about their PhD journey. And with that, you become more competitive. Yeah, I guess this was the comment I was referring to earlier on. Let me see. I have started my PhD program at my own funding, but hope to get some projects that align to my PhD in monitoring, measurement, and evaluation. That's interesting. Do you have any ideas that can support my journey? Look, I think it's a good thing because I have seen, even within my institution, some people who have started the PhD journey without funding. They came in with their own funding, but in the second year, they applied for institutional funding and they got it. So if you have the initial one to start it, yes, you can start it. But when you come in, that's where the resourcefulness comes in. Apply for institutional grants. There are several of those that can help you offset some of your costs. And I know some people who started it that way, they got the funding. And what you are doing is exactly the right thing to do. Are there some opportunities? It depends on your institution. Within your institution, you might want to look in and see whether there are certain calls that fit into this area. And the area of monitoring and evaluation, it's an interesting area that you should be able to find some funding for. You can also explore external. There are a number of external opportunities in some organizations. I know some organizations in Africa that support PhD students that are currently enrolled in certain African universities. They can access opportunities to pay for certain things and some of their projects. Again, the best answer to you is to look within your institution and see if there are options there. If there are none, because monitoring and evaluation, it's more the methodology of thing, but the subject area, whether it's in child protection, it's in nutrition, it's in any other kind of field, that would help us support you better in terms of what you can do to fund it. But again, please, you need funding to continue that project, and you can also go through some competitive biddings. I'm sure there are a number of PhD, there are many doctors on the platform now who also have experience. They can also chip in at any time. I wouldn't assume that I have all the answers to all the questions today, even though I am the one speaking. So how do you manage a situation where an employer or a line manager insists on one creating time for one's work while still doing a PhD, especially if it is done full time? Yeah, that's a very challenging situation. That's why undertaking a full-time job and a full-time PhD is near impossible. It's challenging because PhD is a full-time work. That is, if you opt for a full-time position. If to answer you right, for you to create a bit of time for your work, if that work is so important, then you can easily change and modify your candidature from a full-time to a part-time, because that's the only way you can combine a full-time PhD with work. Other than that, I'm just thinking how possibly you can manage a full-time demanding job plus your PhD. One has to go part-time. Either your job goes part-time or your PhD goes part-time. Then you can find a bit of balance. If not, you would overkill yourself, in my view. That's a rather tricky one. What are the advantages and disadvantages of PhD by thesis and PhD by publications? Okay, maybe I can look at it this way, because I did my PhD by thesis, because that's a bit more intense and really focus on putting a whole document together. What advantage does he have over by thesis? It's not very, I'm a bit hesitant to say that one is better than the other in any way, because they all have their merits, and the merit is that at the end of it, you have a PhD. It's all about preferences, and it's all about institutional processes. Some institutions will insist that it's PhD by thesis, and some supervisors will say that I just want a PhD by thesis because I want you to pay attention and let's build it together. The challenge with PhD by publication is that, especially in this time, much as it is great and looks very appealing, it sounds easy in the beginning. It's really not easy, because sometimes you submit a paper, which is the downside for me for PhD by publication, is that sometimes you submit remember, your graduation or your completion is dependent on a number of publications, 5, 4. Now, these days, when you submit a paper to a journal, sometimes it can take 8 months, sometimes even a year for you to get a review. And the much as you are trying hard, you should be mindful of rejections and frustration, because I've seen a couple of candidates that are doing by publication. They keep being rejected. They are struggling to get the papers through. Someone has been doing it for 5 years now, is still trying to get the last paper through. So those are just the downside of PhD by publication. Whereas by thesis, you just get your thesis done, it is assessed externally and passed, and that's okay. You are done with it. So I wouldn't pitch them against each other so much. Okay, I think anyone else could help if you have answers to the questions as well. And let me see. I am not sure whether this is relevant. These days, with the online supervision and teaching and the trend that is going on these days, that of students contracting someone to write their dissertation, especially for master's program, resulting in employers losing trust on these courses and graduate And as a supervisor myself, I have noticed that some students just push on their work and resist feedback through Zoom meetings. Could it be that someone is writing their dissertation? How can a supervisor handle such a situation? And the problem of getting people to write their dissertation. This good question and very challenging one for that matter. And most institutions are strongly frowning upon contract cheating, where people really just contract someone to write their thesis for them. Now, here's the thing. In my institution, for example, you have opportunity to defend your proposal. So if you contract someone to do it for you, then you also be ready to speak to it during the defense, during your candidature confirmation session. So there are now institutions have inbuilt certain mechanism to track whether you are actually writing your work or someone else is doing it for you. So, and as a supervisor, it's fairly easy to detect. I mean, I know my students, I know the language my students use, I know how they sound when they write. And so when some piece comes to me and it doesn't sound like them, you question, did you write this? Is it original? So you can check all that. Of course, there are ways to also check plagiarism in systems, but again, it's all about institutional strategy. The way technology has so much moved, until institutions take different strategies to track independence of research, people will continue to cheat. It's not the right thing to do. Personally, I would strongly frown upon contracting someone to write your thesis for you. It's okay to seek help when you are confused. It's okay to ask someone, can you read over my work for me? Can you check this methodology for me? That's okay to do, but to fully contract your thesis to someone, that is unethical completely. And at the end of it, you come out with a PhD in social policy, for example, and you cannot do anything social policy in the workplace. So whose disgrace is that? That's yours, you know, and people go through that, but it's not the right thing in my view. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Can you throw a little bit more light on modalities for pursuing a PhD through publication? Yes, this track would, when you are enrolling into a PhD, you have and you come into the PhD program, you have options depending on your institution to choose whether you want to do the PhD by publication or by a thesis. And that will be agreed between you and your supervisor. And of course, all the necessary documentations are prepared. If you're going to do your PhD by publication, then you start with, of course, you would have gone through all the necessary design, the confirmation of candidature, all the proposal writing, all that, you go through that. And then you start converting your various questions to your publication, to your papers. And at the end of it, you put all the papers together. So the process differs from one institution to the other, but it starts with a track. So these two tracks are often available in the university, and that you choose to or agree with your supervisor. Some supervisors will say, I would like you to do this PhD by publication. The exciting thing here is that you start building your academic writing skill right from the onset, and start experiencing the rigor of getting feedback from journals and then reshaping that, which also, of course, helps you to think differently about your own project. To answer the question rightly, it depends on the structures within your institution for either pursuing PhD by publication or by thesis. It's difficult to provide a generic template for that. What are the advantages of studying for a PhD full-time and online? Full-time and online. Full-time, that's not, the full-time is a nature, but the online is more like the That's the method of accomplishing that. So if all your PhD is an online PhD and you don't have any physical contact or relationship, I guess these days it's possible to do that because, I mean, technology, I mean, people enroll, even in COVID, people never met their supervisors face to face, but we use the Zoom platform to discuss. You send your papers through. What are the advantages? The advantage is that, of course, it's flexible for both you and supervisor. But again, there is a reason for which institution insists on full-time PhD on campus in many ways, on campus, because the experience is different. If you're an online PhD candidate, you only do everything online, but on campus, the interactions, the connection, attending the various events on campus and everything, that kind of experience is different. So the online option, it's mainly because it is flexible to do. That's the advantage there. It is flexible to do. Other than that, I would love an on-campus kind of experience. If you have that opportunity, it adds a lot of excitement to the journey as well.
Okay, that was the last question. We are very delighted.
That's a lot of relief.
Yes. We still have a couple of minutes. So as Dr. Doe has asked if you have any contribution, especially the senior colleagues on the platform, to add to what he has presented excellently, please raise your hand. I can take the first 3 people if you want to make a contribution. Just raise your hand, I will recognize you. The first 3 people will take the go. All right, I have Duncan, I have Zainab, who is the 3rd one. All right, I have Leah. So please don't raise your hand again. We have the 3 complete. Okay, Duncan, I go with you first. Just unmute yourself and speak. Duncan, unmute yourself and speak.
Are you able to hear me?
Hear you, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. This has been a very interesting conversation. I didn't know about it until a friend this evening just shared with me. Probably the discussions that have been given by Doc have been the concerns that most of the people face. Someone will tell you they've taken more than 5 years to 10 years to take their PhD. Because probably maybe of the poor skills between them and their supervisors. This just came at the right time when I'm looking forward to equally apply for my PhD. But my areas of interest may be a little different. I could probably want to work closely with the organization and come out with options that will be able to help the youths, help the scholars, and equally maybe raise our bars, especially on research. Probably this could be fine for the start, and maybe because it is my first time, you allow me have further interactions with you in later dates. I'll keep in touch if allowed, please.
All right, Duncan, thanks very much. ASFI is open. If you look at the chat box, Eman has put some links to our YouTube channel. She has put a link for the evaluation form. Some of you are already asking if you would have this presentation. Dr. Daniel Doe, I'm not sure how you feel about that. You don't need to respond now. You can give me your answer later. But if you fill the evaluation form, and if he is positive about that, we will, of course, send it to those of you who have completed the evaluation form. I mean, the evaluation form will collect your email and then we'll do that. All right, so Duncan, we have lots of activities going on the platform of ASFI. Many, if you go to our YouTube channel, I tell you, you will have high blood pressure because you have missed a hell lot of activities in the past almost 3 years. But you are welcome. Take the journey with us, and then we have a lot of things to offer you in the days and months and years ahead. All right, Zainab, please take your turn.
Yes, thank you very much. Indeed, I'm also one of those that has probably missed out on these opportunities because I only got to know about it yesterday when we attended the webinar organized by the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital, ERD. I must thank Dr. Dabuta for involving us and for bringing us into the programs that you run. And from here, I think it's something that we'll continue to align ourselves with. Then back to the question that I have, the PhD issue, I would like to know how women can be fully accommodated. You know, we have a lot of challenges, family, you know, work-wise, and every other thing that a woman is engaged in, although we try our best to see that we also update ourselves as far as the different degrees are concerned. A lot of us have the master's degree, we have the fellowship and all that, but then pursuing the PhD has become a sort of challenge. So what can a lady do, especially our women, to ensure that they balance this with the need to also go into the PhD? For instance, I know that a degree in a relevant field is required, although previous qualifications do not have to be in the exact same discipline as the PhD that one is applying for. So what are the opportunities out there? We keep hearing people say explore, go out there, but what are those likely institutions that can actually sponsor? Because you have said it, that is a very expensive venture and one has to be ready for it, especially when you go to a workplace and then you need to take time off, even if it's part-time. You also need the resources to be able to do the PhD successfully. So is there any such existing institution that people can apply to? Or is it the academic institution that offers the PhD? Please guide us so that we know how to pursue these things better. Thank you, and over.
Yes, Dr. Do, is over to you.
All
Tough
right,
one, but I hope you can support us with some answers.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I wasn't expecting a question here, but that's fine. Look, I perfectly understand the unique position of our women who are pursuing PhD. In my view, it's a little more harder for them than it is for most men, because especially for those that have child-caring responsibility, as I have seen with some of my own students, it's really difficult. Now, in terms of opportunities to enroll, there are some specific calls that say that target women. So that, again, I'm coming to the word that you wanted us to avoid using, explore, because there are a lot of PhD positions that are specific for women across different countries. If you want, I mean, I can connect with Bright and send you some of the links and the opportunities for that. In my institution, for example, there are times that some calls come would say that women, would target women. Of course, increasingly, there are affirmative actions happening to increase the enrollment of women into PhD programs in many countries, and that we should take advantage of. Again, it's more an issue of exploring where the options are, and it takes a bit of time. As I said, I can work with Bright and the team to see how best we can carve a niche for ASFI when it comes to enhancing or facilitating access for our women. I understand the position they face. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Do.
Sorry, Brad, let me just say one thing. I've seen a question here that says that, and I thought it's important. The person says that it's getting funding for PhD. What are the tricks now? Look, there are a number of selection criteria for PhD scholarship. First is your academic qualification. So they look at if you have a research degree that has a mark for that. And then the next thing they look at is your publication, your research experience. So there's a mark for that. So research experience and publication, there's a mark for that. And then, of course, there's a mark for the supervision environment. Whoever your supervisor is, the supervisor's pedigree and contribution, there's a mark for that. And then, of course, there is sometimes people make case for inequality. If you have faced some challenges in your life, which has affected the way you would have contributed to scholarship, that also has some mark. Now, I have found, especially for most of our colleagues coming from Africa, where they are not getting the funding, is more in the area of research experience and publication. That's the problem. Because they have the research degree, they have the MPhil, they have the Master of Research and everything. But 5 years after your MPhil or whatever it is, there is no single publication. And there is no track of showing that you are working in a research environment to warrant that kind of, and those are the areas that a lot of mark is awarded. So I just want to encourage people seeking for, if you are looking for PhD funding in most of the universities across the world, pay attention to, at least try your hands on some publication with your supervisors and with people around you. You can't do it alone, but find your face somewhere in a paper, it helps. And then, of course, your work background and your experience relevant to the field that you are interested in. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much for that excellent prescription. Please, I didn't ask you to write your email on the chat box. I said fill the evaluation form. Some of you already put in your emails. I wouldn't take them. I give you the promise. I wouldn't pick them up from there. I will only take them from the evaluation form. I think that is the first place to even start the PhD, to learn how to follow instructions. All right, Leah, it's over to you, the last speaker before we move on.
All right, good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Many thanks to ASFI for bringing Daniel here. So my contribution, let me start with what Dr. Zainab, yes, asked. There is the Organization for Women in Science, Education and Engineering, OWSD. They specifically provide scholarships and funds for women, those who are in STEM, in science, technology, and engineering. And also there is what I call the FACAT. Also they fund, although I'm not yet got a fund, but I know those platforms are there for women specifically. And what I want to add, it really touched on me when there was a presentation of how you have to choose. Don't stress yourself by making full-time, two full-times. Full-time PhD, full-time work. It can't work, as we know you can't manage to do everything at the same place as a human being, unless if you are God. So let us push and share what we know, because sometimes people has information, they keep themselves, they don't share. But in ASFI, for sure, in ASFI we share knowledge, we share information. So be there for ASFI, and the ASFI will be there for us, for sure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Leah. Leah is a faithful alumnus of ASFI, and she knows what she's talking about. So those who are still complaining about funding, about connections, you have yourself to blame if you keep doing that in the next 1 year, because ASFI provides you the opportunity to connect. Many opportunities come just by connecting, then you find other opportunities. All right, Eman just wants to say something, so I'll give her the last bit.
Thank you, Pride. Thanks, Daniel, for insightful presentation. Just I have some comments for those who are fighting about funding. I see some PhD students come highly motivated and they want to do something striking, and so they choose topics that is highly expensive and costing, like some want to work on something engineering or genetic study where they have no funding. So when you choose your PhD topic, think about availability and about your strengths and your situation. The second important thing, some ask about choosing the topic and the conceptualization. I want to say is that we have a lot of areas to improve this point. If you go through YouTube channel, ASFI channel, we put the link here, you will find resources for previous courses about scientific writing, grant writing, and you can review these courses, and also you can apply for future courses. And once you attended one ASFI event, you will be added to our list and you will get updates unless you opt out from this list. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Eman. Dr. Daniel Doe, words cannot express our gratitude to you this evening for really taking the short time to espouse on this very difficult terrain. It can be subjective, it can be objective, but altogether, PhD is doable. That is the question he has addressed this evening, and that you should look out for it. But you need to have the necessary ingredients, both to start and to finish it. Once you have those in place, anybody can do it. Even nursing mothers can do it, but you need to have the necessary ingredients. So we are very grateful for your insights and your excellent presentation, particularly having coming from the other part of the world. As I check now, is 5:43. And if you are somebody like me, once I have presentation, this kind of presentation, I wouldn't sleep. So I assume that you have not slept over the night just to do this. So we appreciate you. I think everyone in the audience, you can give him a thumbs up for taking the time to be with us this evening. Do it quickly so that he knows that we appreciate what you have done. So we thank you very much. And having come here, you see what is happening. Our African brothers and sisters need support. And this platform is there to see how we can support them in any way possible. That is why we are having this. Somebody has benefited from your speech this evening, and that adds a lot to the journey we are taking as scientists and academics. I also would like to thank Dr. Edna Majaliwa. Sorry that your network really felt bad this evening, but we are really appreciative for you taking the time to come and to handle this edition this evening. And thank you, the audience. Please just hold on there. Let me finish this evening. And when I finish, Eman will always want to take the picture, so just stay with us. The fact is that, as you have seen this evening, also from comment from colleagues, ASFI is here for you. We have provided a platform through which you can collaborate, through which you can network, through which you can build your capacity. And so you really do not have so much to complain about, because what we have done over the last 2.5 years or so, you can find them all on our YouTube channel. They are there for you to pick up. And then we have programs ahead. We have programs ahead to the end of this year. And of course, next year, we have big dreams. We have big dreams. So please look out for our future activities. We have organized several programs will be running in 2023, and of course, going forward. And we have asked you to volunteer, and hundreds of you have volunteered across different programs we are running. we are dealing with 3 of those now. We'll come back to the others. But yes, we have scheduled meetings. We'll be keeping in touch. Next year, we want to really shake the ground. We want to be active. We want our voice to be known. We want to equip ourselves. We want to connect. We want to collaborate. We want to move forward. So please join the train. We're working on the Afro Scholar. We're working on the Research Bootcamp. And of course, we are working on the first ASFI Digital Multidisciplinary Conference. More information will be coming up on this. And then we mentioned that from 2023, ASFI will be transitioning to membership-based organization. And what we mean by that is that now we have thousands of people who are on our mailing list, who have joined the mailing list. Not everybody has the same level of motivation. Not everybody has the same level of commitment. We want to begin to streamline our activities so that those who want to benefit most from it will benefit. And I'm sure that every one of you on this platform this evening would like to be one of those. So we want to create a community that will provide a place of belonging for those who are members of ASFI, a community that will ensure that members own this movement. That is what we see, it's a movement. And of course, a community that will ensure robust commitment from all members. So you may ask, if I become a member, what are the benefits? We want to transition to the point where we will have exclusive tailored trainings for maximum benefit. We want to provide things that will benefit you. I'm sure this evening you have enjoyed the session. We can take it further. And so being a member, you have exclusive tailored trainings, exclusive tailored and match mentorship. Many of you are in our mentorship programs, and I am sure you are benefiting from that. If you attended our second year anniversary in July, you will discover some who have gone through these processes, have gone to win prestigious grants and funding. That is one of the things we have spoken this evening. How do I get funding for my PhD, and so on and so forth? We can support you through tailored mentoring when you are a member. As I mentioned earlier, that from next year, we will start taking some fees for our courses. And so a member, you will have discounted course fees, discounted conference fees. We will also be providing the annual, what we call Research Excellence Award to our members who are doing well excellently, to encourage participation and excellent science. And the active participation in capacity building activities, we will ensure that you are not only a participant, but you are part of those who will support the organization of our different activities, the conferences, the boot camps, the research activities. So there are a host of benefits that members will get. And so watch out, we'll be rolling it out before the end of this year. And then membership, of course, will attract some small membership commitment fees to ensure that you don't just run in and run out. We want to keep the members respectfully and give them this maximum benefit. And I think some of you are already asking, what is the next topic for the seminar series next month, 27th of November? We want to look at giant disruptors, bandwidth, electricity, and power. How do they impact African scientists' output? Well, you can see that our moderator was a culprit this evening. They attacked you. They attacked you in different ways that you couldn't perform to your maximal efforts. So we are going to discuss this. I will having a panel discussion. If you joined the last panel discussion, you discover that it was quite enriching. We want to hear the voice across Africa. What is happening in the area of internet bandwidth, electricity issues, power, or you call it energy, and so on and so forth. And how are these impacting you and impacting your output as a scientist? So please watch out, come along and bring your friends. You don't know, you may be one of the panelists. We'll be in touch. But on the 27th of November, we'll be discussing this issue. And then the next tips and tricks for Dr. Wanro's tips and tricks is on tips for failure. Tips for failure, common mistakes grant writers make. And if you have participated in our grant writing and funding course, you know that getting grants is not an impossibility, it's a possibility. And there are some routines and the tips you can apply to be successful in that. Yes, the big topic in town is, when is the next course coming? We have announced that. And so Eman has put link. If you have not applied, please do so. The deadline to apply is 15th of November. If your colleagues have not applied, please encourage them to apply to this course. It's an excellent course. For those of you who are asking the question, what is the difference between thesis-based PhD and publication-based PhD, or if I'm writing to publish my scientific articles, how do I do that? This course will expose you and provide you an opportunity to know the roots, to know the skills, and to do it successfully. All right, we'll have some links here. You can take up. Eman has been putting those on the chat box, and I hope you can take this to be in touch. So that is all from me this evening, and I hope you have enjoyed it as I have enjoyed it. Together, we can make Africa great. It says that it is the little drop of water that make up the ocean. It's an important saying. And so the little efforts we make here, you may not know in the next 10 years, the change that can come within the context of African science and the contribution we can make. We are here for you, and I'm sure you are here for ASFI. All right, over to you, Eman, to take your picture. Please, you can open your cameras, and now I think I have shut your mouth off for too long. You can unmute yourself and say all you have. Why, Eman? Yes. You see why we mute them?
I feel like this is actually not.
All right, Eman, you can take the pictures.
Thank you very much.
Wow, what's this?
Eman would like you to give some smiles, please.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
You, Professor Bright, long time.
Yes, long time. I'm still here. Abdul Hamidu. Yes,
Good
evening.
Nice to see you.
Good evening, Eman. Thank you.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay,
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
See you tomorrow.
Bye. Thanks for the support.
Bye.
Bye. For those who knows, see you tomorrow. Okay, bye.
See you tomorrow.
We know, Dr. Leah, we know. I can see you. Bye. All right. Good night.
All right. Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone.
Right.
Have a wonderful week.
You too.
All right. Thanks, Dan, and we'll be in touch. We really appreciate. Yes. Eman, are you done?
All right.
Thank you, Professor Waru.
Yes, thank you very
everyone.
much. Thank you very much. All right. Have a good evening, Eman. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye. Wow.